Today we're going to be making this deck case stencil. It's one of 4 that you can download from our website at www.cardboardstencil.ca. And with it you can make deck cases very similar to this one, which is great for putting the decks for your favorite trading card games and storing them out of the way when you don't want to use them. Let's get started. What a mess of stuff I have here. Let me try and explain what's going on with these stencils. Before we start building, I wanted to explain the different names and letters that are on the ends of these stencils so that it all makes more sense for you. There's 4 stencils right now. There's the 24 case pop, non-sleeved and single-sleeved decks only, which would be NSSS. And then the double-sleeved decks only, which would just be DS. So then you also have a stencil for a 24 case beer, non-sleeved, single-sleeved, and also double-sleeved decks. So 2 stencils for the beer, 2 stencils for the pop. Once again, NSSS is the non-sleeved single-sleeved, DS is the double-sleeved. Double-sleeved decks, if I can use these 2 here as an example, the regular decks, your non-sleeved and single-sleeved, are 68 millimeters wide, and your double-sleeved are an extra 4 millimeters wider. They just don't fit very well in these boxes. They're 72 millimeters this way. So these don't fit very well in these cases. These cases were designed for 68 millimeter wide deck boxes. And so is this guy here. There's a Legend sitting right there. So these ones fit inside of here, but these wider, these are the double sleeved ones, the DS, they don't fit inside very well. So in order to be able to make that work, we had to make 2 different sized stencils because the dimensions of the deck case itself have to be a bit wider to accommodate these wider deck cases. So, hence the double-sleeved and the non-sleeved single-sleeved. Now, as for the other reason why I had to separate them is this deck case is designed based on the factory folds that are found in the packaging, whatever it is that you're using, whether it's pop or beer. And if you look up here, the dimensions for a 24 can case of pop are different than the dimensions for a 24 can case of beer. They're just not manufactured the same, the packaging. And so to work with the factory folds, these creases that are found in the packaging, I couldn't make it all work with one stencil. So I had to create 2 stencils. And then in researching the different sizes, I found that these 3 worked together, but these 2 worked together. And if you'll notice that the 24 can case of beer is not the same dimension as a 24 can case of pop. So using that as the most common type of packaging that you can make a deck case with, that people would purchase, because you can't get anything smaller than a 20 can case of pop to make one of these cases. This 24 one's pretty small as it is. You can't get very many decks in there. Anyway, you can make this stencil with a 24 can case of pop, but you can't with a 24 can case of beer. You have to use this one. Hence the name. This is the beer stencil and the pop stencil based on 24 can case. So the only real difference is just in the dimensions, the different segments of the stencil. That's why I had to create 4 different stencils. So when you're deciding which stencil that you're going to create or to make a deck case like this, you've got to ask yourself, are you going to be going double sleeved, or are you just going to do regular single sleeved or non-sleeved decks? That will help you decide which one of these stencils to make so that you can make one of these. One more last little bit of information that I want to share with you before we get started. When you're going to make your first stencil, you need to make it with the same packaging, and you can pick any one of these 3 if you're using this design, whether it's the double sleeve decks or the non-sleeve single sleeved. And same thing with this kind of packaging. If all you've got is a 24 can case of pop, then you have to make a stencil, this kind of stencil with the packaging, and vice versa. And you can use either size to make this stencil, whether it's double sleeved or not. And these 3, any one of these 3 will make this stencil. And the reason why is, if you were to pretend that this was a full case of pop, the bottom and the top are the middle segments of your packaging, and that's this part right here. If you'll notice that the 24 can case of beer is skinnier than the 24 can case of pop. So if you were to print off these 3 pieces of paper and put it on this kind of any one of these packaging, it's not going to work correctly, because you want to be able to close up your stencils when you're done using them. So make sure that any one of these 3 that you have, you can use for this stencil, and any one of these 2 you can use for this stencil. All right, let's get started. To make this stencil, you're going to need the packaging, 3-page printout for the stencil that you want to create, utility knife, scissors, glue stick, and a ruler. You're also going to need a pen, and finally a cutting board. Now you're ready to get started. To begin with, you're going to look at your 3-page printout here. There's some instructions right here you're going to read first, and then after that there's a bunch more here for you to look at. So to start off with, we're going to grab our ruler and we're going to check this part of the legend to make sure it's the same size as what's written in there. Once you've verified that, you're good to get going again. If not, keep on reading that the little instructions in there to see what you need to do next. Reading the instructions on the bottom of this page here, you can get started cutting off the tops and bottoms and everywhere else that it mentions. Make sure though that when you're doing this cut, you want to leave a little bit of room between the scissors and the bottom line of the stencil. You want this little gap to be right there. That's great. And then you can go ahead and start working on the top side of it. Now it's got 2 little stubs right there. You're going to cut around them very carefully. Don't worry about the dark grayed area for now. Just cut around the stubs and then along the line there. These stubs are quite important because the stubs sit on top of the creased packaging, and so when this is all finished, you're going to want to have none of the paper sitting on the creased packaging, because if it does, then it bunches up and it kind of makes a bit of a mess. So these little stubs are designed to sit on top of the creases, and when you cut off the dark grayed areas where you can see where my thumb is, it'll get rid of the stubs completely, and then the white part of your stencil will be spaced perfectly in the packaging. So trust in the process, it'll all come together quite nice, and keep on cutting there. Once you get both of these stubs all finished like that, that piece is ready to go. Then you can get going on the next piece here. you can cut. This is the middle page, so you're just going to cut off those directions, because once you're done cutting all the pieces of paper, these instructions are what you're going to be reading next. So take your time, cut right on the line, the top side and the bottom side, and then we'll get ready for the next piece. Now let's get on to the last page. This is page number 1. We got little stubs on the bottom side there again. You don't need to cut off the top. You can if you want. Just leave some room off of the line, the top line that is. And the reason being is that once it's glued into place, you've got to cut off the excess cardboard anyways. So you can use the outer lines of the stencil as a guide to know where to cut, and it just gives it a nice finished look. That's the only reason why I'm suggesting not to cut out the very top or the very bottom of the stencil right on the line yet. And that's also why you're going to leave the grayed areas in there for now. So just cut along the bottom here, making sure to cut around the 2 stubs. There's only the 4 of them on the whole stencil, and then you're ready to start putting everything together again here. Now it's time to start gluing these pieces of paper onto the packaging. So you're going to open it up, and you'll notice in this frame there's 3 different sections of the packaging, left, middle, and the right. And what separates them is the factory folds. So we're going to start with page 2, and we're going to put it in between the 2 factory folds here and here. And then you want to make sure it's inside of this factory fold and the one on the other side. Keep it in between all 4 of those. And once you've seen how it all sits in there and how close it is to the edges and everything like that, you're good to go. You can grab your glue stick, flip it over, and you can start gluing. Now notice this glue here, it comes on wet. When it's wet, it's blue, and as it starts to dry, it goes clear. So if you notice where I drew the first line there, it's already starting to dry pretty quickly. So when you start using your glue stick, you've got to do this pretty fast. Otherwise, the glue's gonna dry and it's not gonna stick very well to the paper board. So once you got that all finished, you can quickly flip it over and put it into place, smooth it out, and once again make sure you stay in between all 4 factory folds. Now you're going to grab page number 1, as seen in the top left here. It's got 2 stubs on it, so you're going to dry fit it into place, making sure that the stubs sit on top of the factory fold and are inside both vertical factory folds. And once you can see how they're supposed to touch each other like that, and you're happy with it, you can flip it over and start gluing. Now this time I only did half of the page because the glue stick glues so fast. I just did one half of the page at a time, as you're going to see here. Put it into place, and then I'll start gluing the other half. Now as I put it into place, I have to make sure that the stubs line up perfectly with the edge of page number 2 there, not only on that side but also on the other side. And sometimes that can be a bit tricky, as you're going to see with me. I kind of really struggled to get everything right. And you have to rush through this because the glue dries so quickly. And even if it does, however, it's not the end of the world. You can always pull up the dried ends or edges and put some more glue down. So no need to panic with this. Take your time, make sure you get those stubs touching just perfectly, and then you can smooth it all out. Once you've got that smoothed out and fitting just the way you want, flip over the other half, and you can glue down. I just took rough estimates of where the page would finish, and I just struggled but got through putting glue down everywhere I needed it. And then lay that down, flatten it out as best as you can, make double sure that the stubs are lined up just perfectly. Go ahead and grab the last page. In my instance, it's page number 3. And this is just a repeat of the last step there. You're going to line those stubs up on top of the factory fold like I'm doing there. Do a nice dry fit. Make sure everything lines up nicely. And then you can go ahead and glue it into place, just like I did with the last one. Once you're done gluing on the 3rd page, you can grab these instructions and start reading them and following along. I'll save you that hassle in this video. The first thing it's going to ask you to do is to start cutting out the entire bottom side of your stencil, right along that magical little black line there. Cut that off, and then once you've got that finished, you can go ahead and cut off the very top of the stencil on the line as well. Once you get the top and the bottom off, as you can see, it's starting to take shape and look a bit like a stencil. Next, you're going to cut off all the dark gray areas on the left and the right side. Take your time and try and stay right on the magic lines. If you're off by a little bit, I wouldn't worry about it too much. Just try and do your best. Once your scissors have taken you as far as they can, get out your cutting board and your utility knife, and you can cut out those hard to reach places. These little guys are very important, these little gaps here, and they'll be further explained when you start making the deck itself. So finish off anything you couldn't get with the scissors like I'm doing here, and then you can repeat the same process with the other side. I'll spare you the boring video of watching me cut the other side, and I'll just show you what it looks like once both sides are all cut out. Now that I did such a nice job of getting the whole thing in the camera view, you're going to start cutting this line out, all these other rectangles and triangles, everything that's dark gray inside the side flaps and the legend parts of the stencil. These are the little spots that you're going to be using to make marks, and then you're going to connect them with your ruler when you make your deck case. To make the side flaps make the sides of the deck case, and the legend is a way that you can see what's inside your deck case. All of that will be explained in nice detail once you get making your very first deck case. And then the line right near the bottom of my hand that's dark gray that you're cutting out, that's just a slot for the very other end of the stencil to slide into. It just allows it so that you can fold it in basically half so that it doesn't take as much room up when you're storing it while it's not in use. The last thing that I'm going to do is lightly touch and pull up each of the corners there, and anything that's not glued down, I'm just going to quickly glue it down. I use my cutting board so that I don't get any glue on the table. And that's pretty much all there is to creating one of these stencils. Now, just so that you know, the process used to make this stencil is exactly the same for making all 4 of the stencils. Once you're done, just fold it in like that, and you're pretty much done. Thanks for watching.